So in this video, we're going to take a look at how the time management and prioritization matrix links into other concepts on the leadership journey. We're also going to take a look at some tips and tricks for implementing and making sure that this matrix is being used as well as possible. So, Tim, maybe you can share with us the first concept link, please.
Now, it's arguable to say that the topic of time and prioritization has a very clear link to almost every single other concept that we do. One of them is delegation. So imagine you're writing this up for yourself, and then you go and have a chat with your boss, and your boss rearranges or puts their priorities on top of it, and then you cascade it to your team. The result of that is who's going to do what, and sharing out all of the work. And that links then to the SMART criteria of making sure the work is refined and described and objectives have been set in a qualitative way. So very clear links there. Joanna, a concept link for you?
So if we look at the matrix on the top left corner, we have the vision to the future. So the important and not urgent tasks of the job. And this quadrant, I think it's a good representation of the why, because as you align your objectives with your boss and then align with your people's objectives with yours, then the why becomes suddenly much clearer, both for you and your team. And people are motivated, they work hard, and they stay with you if they know where they are going, what your plans are, what the bigger picture is. So describing your long-term goals can be seen as the why for your people. Now, this quadrant is also a favorite of mine because it taps into the main thing that drives motivation for me, and that is personal development while on the job. Looking at the future while you are on the job, thinking, okay, where am I going? What skills do I need to develop in the next years? What should I focus on? Mike, what about leadership styles?
With leadership styles, there are kind of two concept areas that we look at. The first, if you remember, is the skill will matrix, which actually looks quite similar to Eisenhower's matrix. So you've got this X and Y axis, you've got 4 boxes there. And it's all about ways in which you lead people. So do you need to coach them? Do you need to be direct? Should you delegate and empower, etc.? So it's really useful as a leader to look at the skill will matrix, think, how many people do I have in each of these quadrants, and how much time are they taking me to lead them in that way? Because of course, a direct person or a direct leadership style requires much more time than somebody that you can empower and delegate to. And in fact, that person will actually buy you back time, as Tim said, if you can delegate something to them. So really, really useful to look at that model first. The second one was this decision-making style. So you have this spectrum from a fully direct decision-making approach where you're basically doing everything, all the way to a fully cooperative decision-making approach where the team is making the decision and you are kind of just mediating that. And the question then is, how are you making decisions and how much time is it taking you? Because it's very clear that a direct decision can be made much more quickly than requiring a full process where there is multiple meetings and everybody needs to be heard. And there's certainly more to be said about the decision-making style and which fits which scenario. But in terms of time spent, you really want to look at it. And maybe sometimes you should be a little bit more direct so that you don't spend so much time on every decision that needs to be made.
One topic that we've been addressing within these concepts is the topic of agile leadership. And we use the 3 specific meetings that the agile leader brings to the table, which is a planning meeting, a stand-up, and a retrospective. So at a very simplistic level, the stand-up and retrospective are time-bound. So there's a 7-10 minute focus on the stand-up on a daily basis, which relates to Eisenhower's matrix in terms of how much value can you obtain through a short sequence of time, which I find really interesting. The retrospective is also time-bound in terms of, maybe half an hour to an hour, And then again, addressing the firefighting that happened during the week and assessing what movement did we make on those important topics. And also, how do we deal with, the bottom right-hand quadrant if that happens to come up? So, tools and tips and techniques around the topic of time management are very often discussed within the retrospective. One of the leads that I'm working with at the moment has a very nice approach when it comes to the topic of time. He makes it a topic within his team. And he says, bring us your time management system and sell it to us. What's your favorite way of managing your time? Sell us your best technique, your best idea, your best method, whatever it happens to be. So he makes the topic of time management and prioritization a conscious one. He demonstrates Eisenhower's matrix, shows people how to use it, runs a discussion with it, and then opens up the discussion over the course of a year to explore and look for other techniques. And then, of course, our planning meeting at the beginning, Joanna, as you said, linking 100% to this sense of purpose, this sense of why, this overall sense of we're clear onto what criteria we're using to decide what's important at any stage. So, as I said, links to all of the concepts, or many of the concepts within the leadership journey. And we're going to move into a kind of tips and tricks stage. I'll start with tips related to the topic of emotional intelligence. There's a bigger concept called emotional intelligence, which is not the topic of these films. But within the idea of emotional intelligence of step number one is being self-aware. Some of the things related to timing. Timing is everything. Live in the moment. Dedicate the full fiber of your being to the actual specific minute that you're in, like we are right now. Test for accuracy and for understanding. So save time by testing. Yeah. Use your concepts of active listening. Repeat things, summarize things, make sure people understand and are looking at the same picture. A great method of saving time. Planning social events. My brother plans for social events. He goes to, he's a big industrial leader, captain of industry, and he'll go to a party actually with a laser focused plan to speak to one or two people about a particular topic. His wife hates it, but he finds it very, very useful for actually getting value out of social events that he wouldn't normally do so. So use that with a little bit of sensitivity. But again, it's another interesting way of thinking about what you want to do with your time. Know yourself when you're stressed. Know what happens to you when you're stressed. When you get emotional, what happens with those emotions? How long do they stay around for? How long do they damage you? Yeah. How long do they damage your ability to deal with stuff? And how long do you think about them? It's all related to time. Lean into an uncomfortable situation. So if you've got an uncomfortable discussion coming up, step into it rather than stepping away from it. Stepping away from it is avoiding it and spending more time thinking about it. Stepping into it is addressing it and spending less time thinking about it or changing the thoughts that you have about it because you've dealt with it. Self-management. Make your own goals public. Yeah. So announce your goals. It's a time management technique because as soon as you've announced them, you start lighting the fire under yourself in order to go and do something about them. There's a count to 10. Sleep on it. Take time for recharging your batteries. Allocate a certain amount of time to recharging. And then there's one favorite that I have. I've got a friend who's a barrister, a lawyer in England. It's a different kind of a lawyer. They're the guys with the funny wigs, and they stand in front of the judge. He sets aside 15 minutes at the end of the day for problem solving. So during the course of the day, he'll write down anything that's problematic. He'll write it down on a pad. And then at the end of the day, 6 o'clock, gin and tonic time, he'll sit down and for definitely 15 minutes, he'll look at those problems and he won't do anything with them. He'll just take a few notes and start thinking about them. And then The following morning, double espresso, 8:15, 8:30 in the morning, another 15 to 20 minutes in a quiet place reserved for that list of problems. And this is like a metronome for him. He does this every day. Problem solving at the end of the day, back onto those problems at the beginning of the next day with a specific amount of time where nothing else comes in, just that list of those specific problems that need to be dealt with. That's an amazing discipline to have, right? It's like does stuff like that. People who have good awareness of themselves and good personal time management skills. Mike, a couple of your favorite tips and tricks.
My tips and tricks are kind of really going to be around the relationships that you have with the people around you. So, identifying people who are kind of open to this discussion. This model is great to bring into a coaching relationship, and it's a perfect way to get people thinking about their development goals. That top left quadrant is where your long-term goals exist, your development goals exist, training exists, relationship building exists, etc. So confronting people with that makes them think, firstly, what are those things? And secondly, am I actually assigning enough time to make those things a reality? So really, really useful discussion to have, as I said, in some sort of coaching environment. And the other suggestion is having the discussion in general, speaking with people around you, especially if you're a lateral leader. You have created this for yourself, hopefully, but the best way for you to kind of sell somebody to something you need them to do to get them on side is to understand their matrix and maybe how you can help them. What fires are they fighting? How can you put out one of those fires, and what might they be willing to do for you in exchange? Or how is your project, your product, the thing you're developing linked to their top left quadrant, their long-term goals, their development goals, etc. So such a useful conversation to have. And in general, we talk about building good habits. Now, these time management and prioritization concepts, as we mentioned earlier, there are many, many, many. This is one of the most popular, most famous, but there are many concepts. And I like to compare it to diets. They say that almost every popular mainstream diet works. Almost everyone will have the desired effect if you can stick to it. So the question then is not, does it work? The question is, can I stick to it? So in terms of time management matrices, in terms of this process, what you really want to do is find the one that works for you, whether it's Eisenhower's matrix or something else. Find the one that aligns best with your kind of concept of how you want to describe things, how you want to lay things out, and how you understand things. So that's the key point. And whether it's this model or another, as long as you are thinking about your time in a logical way, then that's already, as we said, already half the battle won.
My son showed me his latest time management matrix. He's 21, just into a new job. New bosses have showed him the following. It's a to-do list on one side, and then next to it is a small column that says estimation. Yeah. So you've got an item on the to-do list, and then you estimate how long will this task take me? And next to it is an actuals column. How long did it take me? Amazing. Yeah. This is the task. This is how long I think it will take. This is how long it took. No value, no judgment. Simply, how good am I at personally? How self-aware am I of how long something takes, and then how long does it actually take? So, as you say, yeah, pick something up, use it, stick with it, and start moving on with it. Sorry.
Right. No, it's a perfect example. And I think people could be surprised with how inaccurate their estimations could be, at least at the beginning, but in both directions. You estimate that one task can take 30 minutes and it takes 3 hours, but you estimated that another task would take 2 hours and you finished it in 20 minutes. So yeah, honing that skill of really understanding how long these things take is an excellent thing to be doing. Yeah.
And if your job is, as a lead, is shifting people's jobs and priorities into a time management structure, then for sure you want to know that, right? And you want everybody to know Are we good at forecasting? Are we good at judging how long something is going to take? And do we practice that?
Yeah, definitely. Now, I think Joanna also has a few more tips and tricks for us. Joanna.
Yeah, let's look at the hybrid work for a second. So 18 years ago, when I say 18 years ago, I can't believe it's been 18 years, but I was working for a software company, a software development company, and the discussion about remote work was already happening. So it was right at the beginning of this remote or hybrid work. And they were trying to find a way for people to be able to communicate in a certain time frame during the day so that they are not distracted, so they can do their job during the day. And some of them were working from home and some of them were in a hybrid way of work. So what they did was implement a time box of 2 hours per day where everyone would be available for conversations. Yeah. So if anyone in the company had a question for you, then you had to be prepared to ask your questions in that time frame. And this worked like wonders because everyone became suddenly much more organized. So they had questions prepared. They were looking at situations a day before, making sure they ask all their questions in their time frame. And there was a lot of focus time available for everyone in this particular situation. So I thought that was a very good example of managing hybrid work or managing how to make sure people have the time to focus, but also time to communicate and answer questions or ask questions during a workday. And a second example was from another company, software company I used to work for. This is something that I actually implemented myself, but I didn't tell anyone about it. So it was really interesting. When I got the job, I said, I'm going to reserve 2 hours of focus time for me every day. Yeah. And in these 2 hours, nobody can interrupt me. And I started every day having the same time. And in no time, maybe in a matter of weeks, everybody knew that in this time frame, they cannot come to me with questions because I'm not available. So I didn't even have to tell anyone because it just became a rule for myself. And people started learning. Some of them started implementing the same thing because it just made sense.
And I think this concept of time boxing and time zoning is something that a leader can really promote and give people the opportunity to explore different ways of how time boxing works for them, whether it's a 15-minute focus time on a daily basis for one particular element or one particular thing, or it's a 2-hour block in the beginning or at the end of the day. And you reminded me of a team that I worked with also 20 years ago, where they had just introduced glass fiber networks and video conferencing systems in order to get Prague, Vienna, Budapest, and Ljubljana working together in an effective way. They had a system which was called keeping the lines open. So you had a meeting room in each town, and the video conferencing link was established from 9 until 12 every day. And the team would work in those rooms every day from 9 till 12. So all of the communication happened within that time frame. And then in the afternoon, people went and got to work on their own. You would think that it would be very unstructured and disorganized. At the end of the day, it was one of the most effective things that they did for their project. Today, gamers very often play games for hours online, and they're communicating with their friends all of the time. And there is a system within an organization, which we call, again, keeping the lines open, where 2, 3, 4 people or more meet online with the video feed or just the voice feed open, and they just do their work. So, a hybrid mechanism of working. So we meet, for example, at 9. The meeting closes at 12. There's no purpose to the meeting apart from just get your work done. And over time, it means that people do not have a problem in doing the small talk, in telling a joke, and going for a coffee and having a chat. and of doing all of this, interpersonal communication stuff that is normally so difficult in an online environment, but now becomes easy because I've created a time zone, a time box. I've discussed it with the team. We've looked at the value of it. We've tested it. We've tried it. We've found the way that it works for us. And it becomes a habit that we can then continue with.
And another example could be the long-term recurring appointments. A lot of people set up in their teams a jour fixe every 2 weeks or every week to align. And this way, everybody makes sure they get prepared for that meeting. So if you organize this, everybody knows what they have to do. Everybody knows everyone's role in the meeting. And a few days before, everyone makes sure that they are prepared for it.
And another really important principle of time management is long-term recurring appointments should always be challenged in a retrospective. Not every 2 weeks, of course, but every 2 months. Are we running the same meetings? Do these meetings still have the value that we thought they were going to have at the beginning? And if they don't, then let's tweak them or change them or delete them. I have a really good favorite time management mechanism, which is specifically for that bottom right-hand corner and, top right, the firefighting stage. It kind of deals with the urgency piece. And I've seen this used in a number of different shapes and forms. And it's called the caretaker or the firefighter. Some teams have called it the sheriff. Give it a specific name. And this person deals with any ad hoc requests coming into the team, which means they deal with all of the rubbish, basically. And so you've got a team of 5, 6, 7 people, and one person deals with all of the rubbish for the week or a day or 2 weeks, and which means their job role changes for a certain amount of time. It's probably not very motivational for them. In larger teams, this role is allocated to a group of 2 people. And then there's feedback given to how can we improve this part of the job. And it allows the larger majority of the team to really focus. And it means that all of this stuff coming into the team, which other people may not find important at the moment, or it has a way of being dealt with in a very systematic level. Yeah. The team I work with, where it's called the sheriff, they give the person a cowboy hat to wear while they're doing it. Yeah. Another team I know, they call it Neo from the Matrix. He gets dark sunglasses. Yeah. And they can wear the dark sunglasses during the time. So there's fun that you can have with that process, a good time management mechanism to help with that area. There are probably hundreds and hundreds more. Motivate your team to start speaking about them. As a lateral leader, start collecting good examples from other teams. Take those examples into your own work and to the work of the teams around you. As a lateral leader, if you personally think you have a great time management mechanism, a planning document, a planning method, then show people why you use it. Show people what your plan is. I have a friend called Robbie who's a project manager, and he's very proud of the way that he runs projects. And he describes his project management system to his project managers with the words, I think I've got the best, but I'm happy to be educated differently. So if you've got something better, then tell me what it is. What's that cat's name, Joanna?
This is Floricica.
Floricica. There we go.
Little flower in English.
Now, is little flower, is Floricica, what would you say? Important and urgent, or just important and not urgent?
She thinks she's important. That's what I can say for sure.